My name is Abigail Pinto and welcome to my channel, or welcome back to my channel. I am typically doing some travel vlogs, Disney vlogs. We're really big Disney lovers, and over the past year I've been really wanting to kind of gear this channel towards motherhood. In August of 2021 we welcomed our son Lucas, and motherhood is just such a life-changing season, and I really wanted to create some content, create some videos about motherhood, traveling with littles at Disney, and everything that entails. I'm a huge organizer, packer, list maker, so if that's you, feel free to subscribe, stick around, grab a cup of coffee. I have mine with me, and I have my notes as we talk and dive in and talk about international flights with a toddler or a lap child, a little one. So let's dig in. As I mentioned, we're gonna talk about international flights, or I guess even long duration flights. This past February, we went to Sao Paulo, Brazil with our son Lucas, and it was his very first trip to Sao Paulo. If you don't know, my husband is Brazilian and is from Sao Paulo and was born and raised there for most of his childhood before moving to the States. He still has extended family there, and we aim to visit as much as we can for Lucas to see where his dad was born and raised and be a part of the culture and heritage that he is part of. From DFW to Sao Paulo, it is a 10-hour flight, and a majority of the flights are red-eye. So the flight that we had booked was set to depart at 8 p.m. and land around 6 a.m. And that is literally the time that Lucas is sleeping. Like, the entire time he's normally out in his crib. But this time we were gonna be on a flight, and so there was a lot of anxiousness. I had a lot of nerves going into this flight. I had kind of hope. I really went in hoping he would do really well. Lucas has been on other flights before and he sleeps really well. But Lucas, one, he was getting bigger. He wasn't this like little baby I could just hold in a carrier and just kind of sleep my way through. He wiggles, and whenever he does sleep, he sleeps like a fish out of water and just like flops everywhere. He is a little boy of routine. We've established a routine. He loves routine. So this was going to be a little bit different, and the nerves were very much there. And for us, I have to be completely honest, and I'm hoping in my honesty this can help you as a mama to either another mama or parent or guardian. It was rough. Like, on the flight there from Sao Paulo, or from DFW to Sao Paulo, it was a nightmare. I can't sugarcoat it. Lucas cried, I cried. Sleep was not really had, and I made a lot of mistakes in it. And I, again, have this hope with this video that hopefully you can learn from my mistakes and go into it a little bit more prepared. Let's get into the details a little bit and chat what worked for us, what mistakes we made, some things that I think can help you prep mentally as a parent for your international flight. And I'll talk about all the products, diaper bags, have that all linked below and all that jazz. So going in, I kind of want to talk about 4 different things that I just want to remind you as a mother, as a parent, as someone who's taking care of young children, to just remember before you even start packing your list, or just to remember as you go into your trip, as you go and head to the airport. Kind of just have these things to meditate on, or just pray, just to say, okay, this is my reminder. If you need to write it down, write it down. So I think the first thing you need to remember is, or the first thing to do, and to always have this mindset, is to work as a team. If you are traveling with your partner, with your spouse, with grandparents, utilize them. My son actually did fall asleep on his grandma, but we had tried to interrupt his sleep to lay him down, and that just didn't work. If you have help, accept it. I think that's hard as a mom. Sometimes you think like, well, they're my child and I want to not be an inconvenience to my spouse or an inconvenience to the grandparents, but if they're willing and they're able to help, like, utilize them and take a break. If you need a breather and you can pass off your child, take a break and be able to work as a team. You all have the end goal of landing there safely. As long as your child is safe and okay, and the airline attendants are like, yeah, that's fine, like, go for it, like, work as that team. And then the second thing is you have to be flexible. Flights can and they will change. As I mentioned, we were supposed to leave at 8 p.m. on our flight from DFW to Sao Paulo, but the day that we left, we encountered a really crazy ice storm. It was like ice, snow, sleet. So when we had boarded our plane, we were near the wings and you just saw like 12-inch icicles dangling from the wings. And the pilot had told us that we needed to de-ice our plane before we even ascended into the air. And they had mentioned it would take about 20 to 30 minutes, and that unfortunately was just not the case. It took about 2 hours. We waited for an hour for the previous plane to de-ice, and then the process for us took about another hour. So in reality, we never left the ground until about 10 p.m. And at that time, Lucas was like getting stir crazy because he was like, oh my gosh, I don't want to stand still, and he couldn't sleep. He couldn't get comfortable at all in any way, shape, or form. So even in that, it was like, oh, like I just remember thinking to myself, like, I just want to hurry up and get into the air because I know he'll fall asleep as soon as we get into the air. And that was the case, but it took a while. And I kind of have this phrase with my husband of like, get your patient pants on. So be flexible, get your patient pants on. Things can change and they're sometimes out of control. I love control, but I have to be super open-handed and be reminded that I don't have control over things like when a plane leaves. And then the third thing is, if you do get stressed out, breathe. Take a breather. If you need a moment just to kind of like, okay, if I am passing off a crying child or I need to cry. I told you already, I cried on the plane because it was just so hard getting there. And I needed that moment. I just needed to release the frustration, and I needed to just confide in my husband and tell him what I was feeling, my thoughts. I was angry, I was frustrated. I wanted my son to do one thing and he did the opposite. Be honest with your spouse. Even be honest with your little one. My son doesn't understand what I'm saying, but sometimes in my vulnerability, I just confess to him, Mommy's having a really hard time. And he has no idea what I'm saying, but it brings back the humanity that we're not perfect and we need a little bit of grace for ourselves. And that's my fourth point, is to just give yourself a ton of grace. And at the end of the day, everyone was a kid at one point. Everyone was a kid, and everyone will have a kid, and either has been in that scenario that you've been, or will be in that scenario that you are in, or currently is. You know, there might be a mama right alongside you experiencing the same emotions that you're experiencing, the overstimulation, all the thoughts, the anxiety and everything. So just kind of travel like nobody's watching. You're gonna see these people once. You're probably never gonna see them ever again on the flight. And so I get it, it's hard though, and sometimes you just feel really embarrassed if your toddler is acting up, but they're out of their comfort zone. Give yourself grace, give your child grace, and remember that it's temporary. You're gonna get there to point B, and hopefully it's quick, and you can take a great breather and say, oh my gosh, we made it, thank you, Lord. and just kind of keep trucking along. So practically for our flights. So I'll kind of go into some products that we used, and how I kind of wanted them to work, how they didn't work, and all of that. So I think the biggest concern when it comes to an international flight with a lap child is sleep. For us, there's a couple of methods that you can consider when it comes to sleep for your lap child. The first thing that is available with your flight is a bassinet. So for lap children, most airlines, so double check with the airline that you're flying with, will have a bassinet. Now you do have to select, more than likely, unless you had an empty flight like us, which we lucked out on. But if you want to secure a bassinet, you have to purchase seats. Like it's almost like near a wall. I'll see if I can provide like an image of it right here, like where to book. It's near the restrooms, and so it's kind of like a bassinet that they kind of like hook into the wall of the plane, and a lap child can sleep on it. The caveat with this is they have weight and height requirements, and they're not very favorable. We flew with American Airlines, and the weight limit was 20 pounds, and Lucas was 25 pounds at 18 months. And so I think honestly the bassinet for us would have only worked if Lucas was 1 and under. So double check your weight requirements, height requirements for a bassinet. If you're able to utilize it, utilize it. It could be a godsend, but that's probably the best case scenario for your child. If you're like, I need to be hands-free and a place for them to sleep, totally fine. All right, now the second option is a car seat. And now I will say, if you want to guarantee to have your child to be in a car seat, you have to purchase a seat. But like us, if you're gonna say, okay, we're gonna do the lap child method, you could probably, we did not do this. And again, sometimes it depends on the gate agent and flight attendants and all that it entails. So I feel like sometimes you could always get a different answer, even within the same airline. But with a car seat, if you have an airline approved car seat, which I think most car seats are, you have an empty seat available nearby or in your same row, you could, instead of gate checking your car seat, put that car seat in a seat and have your child sit in that as well. We decided against it just because we kind of use this rule of thumb. How does your child do on road trips? And Lucas around the third hour of a road trip kind of gets a little fussy and is ready to get out. Lucas was also a very warm-bodied baby. He gets really sweaty really fast. And so we had decided against trying to bring the car seat onto the flight. So that's always something though to consider. Maybe you do have a baby or a little one that does sleep really well in a car seat. And if you're willing to either purchase a seat or kind of just ask the gate agent if you can bring in if there's an available seat nearby, that's definitely an option too if your little one can sleep in the car seat and bring it on the plane. And then the third option, which kind of goes in with the car seat, is just purchasing a seat. Now, of course, depending on your destination, that car seat or that seat could be very much 4 digits in cost. And so I know that it's a little hard to cough up over that money, but if it's like, hey, they'll get rest, I'll get rest, we'll have space, we'll be able to survive this flight, and especially for, fuller flights, if you need the space to get those wiggles out or be able to kind of like put them in a seat next to you in some way, shape, or form, maybe purchasing a seat is worth considering doing. We took a risk and had a 50-50 experience. So, and then the fourth option, which is the method that we ended up doing on the way back and sort of on the way to Brazil, was just literally having my son on my lap. Now, in reference to that, I'm gonna link and I'll try to provide some photos with what I'm talking about. We did purchase, and there's 2 different types of these travel pillows. We purchased a travel pillow that you can inflate easily just with your mouth. That could be used either as a footrest or a full-on pillow. And they make them in kind of like mattresses that almost goes over across the entire seat. Or they make them like pillows that you kind of inflate and then squeeze in between that gap where your legs are to like create like a pillow in between those seats. And so we purchased the latter. We purchased the one that we can inflate. So the first original idea, if we had an empty seat for Lucas, was going to be inflating this pillow to its full capacity, and then we were going to like lay him on the seat and have him like fully extend out. Like he would have had an entire seat to himself, and we would have put the blanket and had, you know, all this set up for him to have his own seat. And then me and my husband would have been able to have our own, and everything would have been bliss. But that's not what worked, as I said multiple times. But we ended up though still using it, and this is how it worked best for us from Rio to Miami. We partially inflated the pillow, like the travel pillow, to be kind of like a footrest. So you can like, there's like 3 levels to the pillow, and we did it around the 2nd level. So I kind of had my feet elevated so they wouldn't fall asleep on the flight. And then I reclined it, and Lucas, I just had him here, and we had to do some adjustments. There was lots of like wiggles. As I said, he's a wiggle worm in his sleep. So there was moments that I had to move him to my side or the other side on my, like facing my stomach and cradle. There was times where I had my legs on the pillow, and my husband so graciously let me extend my legs on top of his lap. And so it's what worked though for us. It's not the most comfortable sleeping position, but it's what worked. And Lucas slept from Rio to Miami almost the entire time. That's what really worked for us. So I would recommend the pillow if you're able to bring the pillow. I know my sister-in-law, who also was on the same flight with us from Rio to Miami, had this like mattresses for her kiddos. I know that could be definitely an option as well. It creates kind of like a level-ish space for just a flat surface for your kid to lay. But again, you're also kind of restricted to the width or the height of your child based off of the availability of the seat to the seat, like your back seat to the seat in front of you. So these are all things to kind of consider when it comes to sleeping. And then when it does come to sleep, potentially look at some either sleep aids or some sort of calming oils. We avoided melatonin because I believe melatonin is not necessarily recommended for kiddos 3 and under. So we were kind of looking for a little bit more of an all-natural route, something that could help Lucas kind of calm him. And I think even we took it ourselves, or I should have if I didn't have, but we put a little bit of, I always like to put some lavender beneath Lucas's feet just to kind of bring some calm to him, if you do like essential oils. But it's something else that we did have him, we tried on the way there and it was an utter failure. But on the way back, we did a much better success. And we used these Mommy Bliss Sleepy Time drops. This is what we used. So this is a bit of like an all natural or more natural type of sleep aid that we used for Lucas. And it has, it has elderberry, it has vitamin C, chamomile flower, lemon balm leaf, and passion flower. Those are kind of the main ingredients when it comes to this, like to help with sleep. There is some sugar in it. There's agave that is used, and it's for any baby 4 months and up. So it is kind of a big dosage. For 4 to 12 months, it's 5 milliliters, and then 1 to 4, it was 10 milliliters. So I think the syringe that it comes with caps at 5 milliliters, so we had to give Lucas 2 doses of it. But on the way from Rio to Miami, we were very patient, and we did it before we boarded the flight. So about 30 minutes before you board, maybe start offering like some sort of sleep aid for your little one, just to bring a little bit of like ability to kind of calm. You want to create calm, not anxiousness, you know, as best as possible when it comes to your flights. And then I think another thing that is really just helpful to kind of cultivate sleep is to, as best as possible, try to create that environment that your little one is used to when it comes to sleep. We had Lucas change into PJs, which he sleeps in PJs every night. So we changed him into PJs. We had passies that he always sleeps with. If your child has a lovey, blankets, bring it all. Now, let's chat about everything else. I've mentioned the pillow that was in our diaper bag and all of the things that I did to cultivate sleep. I just want to talk a little bit of some extra things in our diaper bags, or just the things in our diaper bag that we had for our international flight. And so we had a nursing cover. If your little one is still taking bottles or milk or sippy cups or nursing, we still nursed. So we nursed at takeoff. And then whenever you are taking off and landing, it is good to bring your little one something they can suck on to help with their ears popping as you ascend and descend. Lucas has pacifiers, we nurse, we kind of do all of the things. We had an extra set of clothes on top of the clothes that we had, and also his PJs. So we had extra clothes in case if there was a mess. Diapers, wipes, those are always a given. And if you need any sort of diaper cream or baby powder, anything of that sort, make sure to have that on hand. We also had teething oil and some baby Tylenol. You really never know when teething strikes, and sometimes they can come at the most inconvenient of times, and usually they do. So I have used Welleman's teething oil, was a great resource. I know they have those like at Target, CVS. If you need to, also use some Tylenol to help with any sort of gum pain, or even potentially if you have somehow a fever. So it's always good just to have something on hand just in case you need to give your little one that. I mentioned this before, any sort of sippy cups, water cups, bottles, snacks. And I would think this is, I mean, if you're dealing with a red eye, we didn't go into snacks a ton because the biggest thing that we were trying to do is sleep. If you do have a daytime international flight and you're dealing with meals, I think like flights, they're sort of toddlerish friendly, but they don't have this like array of snacks for littles. And so I always like to err on the side of preparedness and or err on the side of caution and be extra prepared and have your little's favorite snacks ready to go, and maybe a variety of snacks. Bring the goldfish or the Chex or the Cheerios or the Puffs, like bring a little bit of everything, so you're able to offer just in case even the meal service isn't available yet or your little one's hungry. You have no idea. Those little snackers eat all the time. So always have something on hand in your diaper bag whenever you're traveling. Another thing that we had in our diaper bag was toys, and I tried to get quieter toys. I mean, for us, we had the red eye, so it was always being considerate of those sleeping. I mean, you could also have sleeping passengers on day flights just as much. Lucas never used it. Our biggest goal was sleep, but if you do need toys, some good ideas were, we have a touch drawing pad, and it comes with like a stylus that is attached. Lucas is a really big fan of that one. We also have these, it's like by Melissa and Doug, they're called Water Wow. Lucas is a big eater of crayons still. He hasn't gotten it completely figured out. He's on his way, but he still likes to put things in his mouth. So crayons, markers right now for us are just a no-go, but these Water Wow pads are fantastic because it's just water. So you fill up these little pens with water and they're reusable. I think that's also a great aspect of them because there's like 4 different pads, and by the time you're done with like the second one, the first one's already dry. So they can definitely keep them busy with that. Lucas also enjoys like those little poppets. There's tons of those all over the internet. There's huge ones and small ones. So we have a small Mickey Mouse ones, and it keeps him occupied for a couple minutes. But I think that's also a good toy that you could always bring. So we had those in our bags, are ready to go in our diaper bag. But some other ideas, stickers. If you do have a colorer that does really well with colored pencils or crayons, those are really good activities. Something I do try to do is just to kind of keep it as noiseless as possible. There is kind of like spinny ones, or magnet tiles are always a good option, but I know they can err on the side of like louder, or they could be a little bit more on the louder scale. So I try to find quieter ones as much as possible. And then the last thing that we had in our diaper bag ready to go was downloaded videos. When it comes to travel, I feel like all rules are off when it comes to screen time. We tried to be as prepared as possible, and we had Lucas's favorite Bluey episodes ready to go, or YouTube videos downloaded. It's a judgment-free zone when it comes to screen time and travel. If you need it to survive and you need a moment to breathe, I think that's a great way just to kind of like, okay, here's this for just a moment, you know. If you need to have it handy, just have it ready to go. You have no idea what you're gonna experience. If this is what's needed to calm down your child, then it is. You can go back to minimal screen time once you land or when you're back home. It's okay. So those are the biggest things that we have utilized. I hope that was really, really helpful. I'd love to know maybe some tips and tricks that you've enjoyed or you've learned along the way with travel, or what was the most helpful one for you, down in the comments section below. But I did want to close with a little bit of just some encouragement in closing. So, and I know there's a lot of opinions. I mean, parenthood in general in today's society and culture is going to come with a lot of opinions on what is deemed right or wrong or whatever. And so I know that there is going to be some people that lean more towards not traveling with children until they're older, or things just are a little bit easier. And while that is very much true, I never want to go in, or I never want to say like, as much as this, like, and I emphasize this, I feel like a lot, was that our flight to Sao Paulo was really hard. I would do it again in a heartbeat. And I think I always have to remind myself that children are not an inconvenience. And when it comes to travel, that's just as much the case. Is it hard? Yes. But is it worth it? Yes. I 100% agree. Because by the time that we had landed from that flight, as difficult as it was, I felt like it was just like a whole other breath of fresh air. And during our trip, we got to see our son light up in such a way that I have never seen him before. We got these memories and photos and videos, and yes, he's not gonna like remember them himself, but I'm gonna be able to share them with him one day. And I look forward to the day that I can and share all the things that he did and the things that brought my heart joy, and just seeing him, you know, swim in the pool that his dad swam in growing up, and meeting his great grandparents and so many people that were ready and willing to love on him. And so I am just so thankful for our time and just the trip that we were able to do. And then there's just like something about post-travel, or like just traveling in general. I think that happens to a little one. I feel like Lucas's legs got a little bit longer and his face got filled with experiences, and like his eyes were just like opened up more to the beauty of, you know, the life that his father had. It's just really cool to enjoy that as a mom, and just to see your little one just grow like a weed and experiencing things that just bring them joy and bring you joy in turn. And so I hope that even in the hard moments, as you're going through this and as you're planning and you're preparing for this plane ride, that you would remember that it's super temporary. This flight is temporary. This season of motherhood and having littles is temporary, but in the end, it's gonna be so worth it. And I hope that you can find joy in that, find a little bit of joy even in the hardships, and be able just to kind of soak in those moments as much as possible. So that's all for today. Thanks so much for sticking around. I hope you enjoyed it. Give it a thumbs up if you did. And until then, I'll see you next time. Bye.